Everyone, I'm Larissa Russell of Creative You, and I'm your host of the Creative Soul Healing Podcast. Here's where we talk about the connection between creativity and healing by interviewing amazing creatives, spectacular healers, and inspiring people who have used creativity in their healing. What does it mean to be creative? What is creativity? You don't have to write a best-selling book or paint a masterpiece or even play in a rock band. Creativity is in everything that we do, in the ways we think, in the way we run a business. In our everyday lives, we are creative all the time. Let's talk about how we are creative and how creativity helps us heal mentally, physically, and emotionally, right now on the Creative Soul Healing Podcast.
Hi everyone, Larissa Russell from Creative You Healing, and welcome to the Creative Soul Healing Podcast. Today I have with me Lena Dolter. Lena is a feminine embodiment and feminine energy guide, intuitive healer, and women's wellness coach. She serves busy professional women who are stuck in a cycle of stress and overwhelm and helps them shift from overdoing, overthinking, and overcommitting and get reconnected with their body so they can feel calm and centered and have more time, space, and freedom on their calendar and in their life. So welcome, Lena.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you. I feel like I say that every time with my guests because I love talking to my guests, but feminine embodiment and feminine energy. And I love this. So yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you ended up doing what you do?
Sure, I will do my very best. I always feel like the story question takes me way far back and then I end up telling like decades of my story. So, I think my story, I'll start with this. I was a chubby kid and I learned really early how important looks are. And really became was not a friend to myself for many years. Was a foe of my body, was ashamed of my body, didn't know how to live or love my body. And as I grew up and worked in the world and like all the other stories that were inherited about money from my family and how to take care of myself and being the oldest of four, and then living in a society that celebrates productivity and results, I just kept growing farther and farther away from the heart of myself, the womb of myself, my body. And it wasn't until I probably was in my mid 30s when I was working with a love coach and I knew that something was just off. At a certain time of the month, I always was connected. And I think for women that are listening who are actively menstruating, or even if you're not, you might remember when like the time before your period, you just feel different, right? Highly agitated, much more frustrated than normal, maybe even more overwhelmed than normal. And, we accept it as being normal and we push through and all these things. And I said something to my coach at the time about, she had asked me like, I don't know, to do something, but I inherently knew that whatever she was asking me to do just didn't feel right at the time. Didn't mean that I wasn't going to do it. Didn't mean that I wasn't taking it in. It just felt like it wasn't the right time. And she said to me, but I didn't really know why. She said to me, you can't use your period as an excuse. And I was like, damn it. Like, am I? So that like just like put me into this place of this really like a deeper self-inquiry. I'd always been kind of an self-inquiry person, but deeper into the self-inquiry of, am I using this as an excuse, or is there something that I have identified that I just don't know what it is? And it turned out to be the latter. And so I went on this exploration of like really understanding what it means to have a cycle and whether you have a period or not. Like we can go into that if that feels natural for us, but we don't have to. And just, that's just part of my story. And so I landed here in this place that now, because all of that, like what I shared before, and that overwhelm and how I help women now is really pulling back from what we've been pulled into as far as society goes, like the doing and the going and the for others, like everybody is above us. Everybody gets our time before us. And it just is what I've learned in my own life and what I see with women that I work with and just in society in general is that it just continues to perpetuate the disconnection that we have with the heart and soul of ourselves. So that's a little of my story.
Excuse me. I absolutely love that because as someone who's going through perimenopause right now, it's the first time that I've really connected with how much my cycle affects my life, right? Because as a younger person, where you have a lot more energy, you just push through. You push through the pain, you push through the exhaustion, you push through whatever's happening because it's not an acceptable excuse in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And as someone now who is a little bit older, a little bit wiser, I recognize that I have to limit certain things at certain times. And unfortunately, I don't have a regular cycle, so I don't know when that is. But it's like, okay, I just have to be kind to myself right now because my body's going through a lot. And, your body goes through a lot as you go through your cycle. So, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, your body goes through a lot no matter what. It's amazing. And I want women to know that it's not we see our bodies as an excuse. It's been kind of like posed as a scapegoat for all these things. And it's not an excuse. It's literally our compass. That's how I look at our body and everything that happens in it.
Yeah. And I did hear someone speak one time saying that at certain times in your cycle, you are more energized, more, and I thought, I really should pay more attention to that. And I haven't. So maybe I need to.
Yes, that is true. And that's not to go off tangent here, but that's where I find most women that's why we get overwhelmed, because we get those higher energy times of our cycle. It is the most accepted energy, right? It's what society, we can get a lot done. So we feel really good and all these things. And then when we transition into a different season, whether you're perimenopausal or menopausal or bleeding, we butt up against the shift of our energy, but our mind and our conditioning and our body is, the conditioning forces us to try to push through this inherent inward change. And it doesn't mean we stop doing things. It just means we approach it in a different way. And it's a conversation I love having. So if anyone wants to have it with me sometime.
Yeah, it brings up an interesting comment. I don't usually go on such a tangent, but this brings up an interesting thing. I'm waiting for an iron infusion. I have iron issues due to perimenopause. And I was talking to the intake nurse and I said, I think I'm starting to feel better. And she said, no, you're not, because I haven't had the infusion yet. And she said, you're a woman and you just do what you need to do and you pretend like it's all okay. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I had to really sit with that for a moment and go, you know what? I think she's right.
Yeah.
Now a little kinder to myself.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the heart of the work that I do. Because we all pretend it's okay. And when really it's not. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. And I think that's the thing that, I want to bring healing around. It's and there also doesn't need to be a reason for you to need rest, right? It doesn't need a reason for you to take time off. There doesn't need a reason. I'm an advocate for women choosing themselves first. And I'm sure we'll get to all of that, but yeah.
Yes. Well, let's move on then.
Yeah.
Exciting. What does healing with creativity mean to you?
I love that question. Healing with creativity. I feel like women have lost touch with their creativity. And for me, healing through creativity means healing through getting in touch with our body. I talk with women who don't even know what play is. They literally had a conversation with one of my group clients a couple of weeks ago. And I asked her, what does play mean to you? And she was stuck. And she's like, I don't even know how to play. And I'm sure that if you're listening now or listening later, you might, I'd be curious if you would get comments that would be I don't know either, right? We have forgotten how to play. We have not allowed ourselves permission to explore creativity. And I feel like that's a large part of why women are struggling in overwhelm and overthinking and overdoing, because we have lost access to this creativity. And creativity and healing through creativity means, for me, healing through connecting with our body. Our body is a creative vessel. Our womb is a creative vessel. Our light comes through our body, all of these ways in which we can access the energy of our body, our living form, is how I see we can use creativity for healing. Well, first you have to know what it means to you, right? To be creative and what makes you happy in creativity.
Right. And I think that's an important point, and I say it often, that creativity is in everything we do. But when we can create intentionally, we can exponentially heal ourselves, right? So, yeah. So what inspires you in the work that you do?
What inspires me in the work that I do, I feel like it grows every day, my inspiration. But I'm really inspired, and maybe inspired is not the word I'm feeling today, but I feel passionate about the work that I do because I see so many women, and I still have parts of myself that I recognize as well. But I see so many women struggling under the burden of who they think they need to be based on what society tells them, based on what they learned through their family upbringing, based on the job that they have or the role that they've given themselves or that's been put upon them. And they have lost themselves. And I'm passionate about and inspired by, I'm passionate about helping women break free from that burden. And I feel like what inspires me is that you don't have to have either or. It's not either or. It's a both end situation that we live in. And my passion and inspiration comes from teaching you, guiding you to find that within yourself, how to be the woman that you are outside of any role that you hold, and hold that space for you to be while while living in the world, while going to your job, but having that be like an embodiment, right? I am inspired by helping women drop in and truly embody who they are, the soul and the heart of who they are, so that they aren't living in fragmented lives and they aren't burdened by the things that are on their to-do list. They know how to move through things with a lot more grace and flow. And that's what inspires me.
Yeah, I can totally understand that because, most women do get bogged down in the day-to-day, and it's that, don't be a weak woman, and, do all of these things that we're told in our culture that you can't have it all, or if you want it all, you have to work 10 times harder for it, right?
Yeah. And or you have to do it all, right? Yeah. So it's a very the image that's coming through me is kind of like this ladder, right? It's like we're climbing up, and as we climb up, things are kind of like in the way that come down upon us that we need to push away, or move out of the way, work, heal through. And that's it can sound daunting, but when my work is really just to support you in accessing that, right? It doesn't have to be hard. It's just learning a new way of being in your life. And that is what allows you to be in the both hands.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So many people believe that monetizing healing, so charging for your healing work or charging for creative works, undermines the healing or creativity, right? What are your thoughts on monetizing creative or healing?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. And I don't know if my answer is going to be very in the moment. So I feel like any work that anyone does, work that brings a result or some sort of tangible result to another, whether it is, anything that you put your energy into and giving in service of another, I do believe that monetizing your work is important to validate your work And let me say it this way as well. Because I see both sides, right? I see both sides. And so it's like, what? However, I do feel like on the other side, like not monetizing and just doing everything for free and in the service of good. I don't believe that receiving income for work that you do that is good and beneficial undermines the work that you do. In fact, I believe strongly that if you have work that you put out into the world that creates great healing, that you monetizing that is an honor of your work and celebration. And it also helps others to come forth and put themselves out there. I don't believe that we need to martyr ourselves in any way, whether it's in your work or any other capacity. And I feel like in the healing world, and depending on if it's healing and or spirituality work, there can be some bypassing stuff, I think, that can get interwoven in that. And my beliefs are really strong that, listen, like if this is, you can be as good and get paid. And then you can also take part of your work and devote it to service that is unpaid and nonprofit. There are ways to be both and.
Yeah, I love that answer. I love that answer. So what would you say then that you're the proudest of in your life?
I always feel like that's a really hard question. And when you're being interviewed like this or like for something else, when I feel into that question, it could be like one thing, it could be like buying my house or moving multiple times. But when I think of the things that I've done, it all boils down to I'm most proud of my courage. And that kind of makes me want to cry a little, like just I'm proud of the actions I take in service to myself. And doesn't mean they're not scary, but I'm proud of the choices that I make. And doesn't mean they're always right, but I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that.
I love that answer. I love that answer. I wish more women would step into that and be proud of their courage and what they've and their decisions and what they've done. Yeah. I love that.
Thank you.
So if you could change one aspect of our society through the work you do, what would that be?
I love this. So I'll share a little story. So I went to church this morning. Little background. Was raised Catholic. I don't know if anyone resonates with that or not, or it's just part of the story. And recently, maybe not so recently, but recently I've been kind of diving more into like the part of Catholicism or any religion that we haven't been taught. And for me, what that means is looking at the feminine aspects of what's missing in what 4th century, humans created as the church, right? As an institution. And so like the other day, I read the full Gospel of Philip, and it's beautiful if you are a religious person, or even if you're not and you're into, like, it's all about love and embodying love. They call it a acropolyptic. I think I might be saying the word wrong, but it's hidden. It's a hidden gospel. So Gospel of Philip, Gospel of Thomas, and Gospel of Mary Magdalene are all considered hidden. They're not represented in modern day New Testament. They aren't considered part of what the church created as gospel, but they embody what the early Christians were teaching. We're spreading the good word, and the good word of love, inherent love, the love that's within us, which is what is reflected back in God, right? Or universe, however you might identify with that. And so as I kind of walk down this road a little bit deeper in a different way, it's showing me what I've kind of seen all along in society, which is just this undercurrent of the devaluing of women, the undercurrent of women not holding or not being honored in holding authority, men being above. Just full disclosure, this is not to say that I am anti-men. I love men. I think men are fantastic. This is more like the patriarch, right? The system that has been created. And in the system, the male and the masculine, and most definitely the wounded masculine traits of results driven, forcing, those qualities are celebrated and revered. Whereas the healthy feminine of flow and love and compassion and kindness are seen as more, quote, weak, whether that's in a man or a woman. And so with the work that I do, if I could change one thing, it would be to bring more equilibrium and equanimity to the harmony of feminine and masculine. Because these energies live inside all of us, regardless of what gender we are, or what gender we identify with. And I believe that the feminine is part of the deep healing of ourselves and the healing of this nation and the world. I don't know that we'll see the greatest healing of all in our lifetime, but I hope to be a part of it. And I hope with the women that I get to support in their journey into their healthy feminine and harmonizing inside of themselves elevates that in all of us.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's beautiful. I would love to see that too. So keep working at it so that we can get there.
Thank you.
So imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah.
Most people I talk to have struggled with imposter syndrome at some point. And have you? And if so, how do you get through it?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I feel like I just had imposter syndrome yesterday or today. Like, I feel like it's, I like to call it the inner critic. I know it's like kind of synonymous. Yes, I experience imposter syndrome. And for me, the way that I identify with that, I think is maybe a little different than other people. It's really just an inner cry from a part of ourselves that's wounded, right? And that's part of the healing work that I do with my clients, because imposter syndrome isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we identify it with like, oh, I can't, this is not how I should be thinking, or this is bad, right? We label these things and we try to get over it, but it's really kind of an alarm system. It's a signal from our body. It's a signal from whatever experience we're having that something's off. And so, yes, I have imposter syndrome, and how I move through that is really listening and hearing, right? It's like first step is always acknowledging, okay, this is a process I take my clients through, and it's something that I've refined over the years in my journey through it. At first it was never listening to it. It was like, can't have that, right? Like pushing it away, and like what we talked about earlier, pushing through. But it's really like, okay, let me open up and hear what this voice is trying to tell me. Is it real? Meaning, like, is it something, is it just old programming? Is it just an old thing that I'm used to, hearing in this experience? Or is it a part of me that's like living in another experience in this present time that I need to kind of dive in and have a conversation with and bring some nurturing to, so that I can really, hear that part of me and love that part of me, and then move on, like give her what she needs and reestablish my inner harmony, so that I'm connected with, my real, myself, the core of ourselves. Doesn't mean these parts aren't parts of us, but just like the home, kind of like the secure, safe, stable voice.
Right. And I mean, I believe everybody struggles with imposter syndrome at some point, right? Or that inner critic.
It's part of us.
It's part of us.
Yeah.
And I would hope that we would question sometimes our ideas and thoughts, right? That we would go, is this a good idea? Let's question that. So
yeah. Is this a time for reflection, right? It's not a time for ignoring or pushing away. I agree with you. I don't know anyone who doesn't have an inner voice. I mean, it's just, we have an ego. We have an ego, and we have multiple parts of ourselves. It is absolutely normal to have an inner critic. It just is. It's how we relate to it, and what what our relationship is to that makes or breaks what's going on in our lives, right? Like how we communicate with ourselves and others, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So true. So do you have an inspirational quote or a motto that you live by, or that maybe this week is your thing?
Yeah, I love it. I have a couple. So one is that there's a friend of mine that had shared, I'm going to try to remember it because he shared it the other day, and I was like, that's so good. He's like, and I might mock it up, but you'll get the gist. The first one is like nothing in reality is nothing in reality is as bad as what we make it out in our heads. Something along those lines. This is not verbatim, but that's one of them. And then the other is a quote from one of the lyrics or one of lines in the Gospel of Philip, which is all exists through love. And that's part of a bigger quote that says, love refuses nothing and takes nothing. It is the highest and vastest freedom. All exists through love. And so like I love all of those lines, and I just pick one that just feels like I can just marinate in it a little bit. And I feel like it's a really lovely reminder that love really is who we all are. And when we can anchor into that, what a difference.
Yeah. I was having that conversation just recently, actually, about, coming from a place of love. And I mean, we talk about it a lot in my, with my clients, but we were talking about coming from a place of love and how ego gets in the way of that, right?
Yeah.
And so then starting to look at the pieces of what's ego and what if you actually felt into the love instead of letting ego be there. It was a very interesting conversation. So
I love that. May I add to that? Because I feel like what you said is like gold. So what I've learned through the study of Mary Magdalene, and I'm no expert yet, but I'm opening myself up to receive more of what these teachings have to say. And you nailed it on the ego, right? It's like the way they describe it in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is like the 7 deaths, the seven, they call them the 7 powers. That's what they call them. And the 7 power, like judgment for one, things we experience as humans, right? Judgment, worry, those are the big ones. And, when judgment comes in, just like you were saying, like, okay, am I going to let judgment take over? Or how can I rise above this judgment, this egoic thought, whatever it is, and let love, kind of spread through. It doesn't mean I think what's really important to share is that we are meant to have these egoic thoughts. We are human and we are divine, and we will never be without. That's what we are. And so having an egoic thought or a judgment thought or a worried thought isn't a bad thing. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's just what you said, Larissa, like note, like, am I going to let this thought be what dictates my reaction? Or can I come into my body, my heart, and let love be how I respond? And so I just really am grateful that you shared that. Thanks for letting me expand.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly it, right? If we can come from that place of love, then we can recognize there's more than what's our immediate reaction is.
Yeah. It's all in the moment, right? It's learning how to be in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I see you have a free gift here, the Women in Flow quiz.
Yes. Yeah. I love this little quiz. Yeah. Do you want me to tell about it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Tell us about it.
So the Women in Flow quiz I created to support women in really just tapping into the energy of themselves. So whether you're perimenopausal or not, it's going to help you see where you can use the specific times of the month where you are energetically to really support you and what you need and what you want. And so it's a fun little quiz that'll take you through some questions that help you see where you need, and you'll get the results immediately and be able to really connect with what your body's telling you. And I love it when I hear from people about the results, because I often hear from women and they're like, oh my God, this was totally spot on. Like, this is exactly it. So if you happen to take it, please PM me or DM me. Like, you'll be on my email list if you take it. If you choose to stay on there, you can reply to the results and just let me know that it resonated for you. And I'd be happy to give you a personalized way to start to get into even more depth of what it looks like for you to begin embodying what your body's telling you they need.
I love that. Well, we'll make sure the link is there.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Is there any final thoughts before we go that we maybe haven't shared yet?
I cannot think of one. I'm really grateful to have this time, and I call forth the women who feel connected to the conversation we have to, if there's something in here that sparked your soul or heart, and you know that you need support to work through it or to rise above it, call upon Larissa or myself or any other mentor that you've know or have seen in your life, and really allow yourself, give yourself permission to receive support. It sounds like Larissa and I do similar work. Like, my mission with the work that I do is to guide you into you, so that right? You turn back into you and be the guide that you already are. And that's what I call you to. So.
Yeah. And I love that. Even just the idea of, it doesn't have to be us, right? It can be you, me, or anyone who can help you through what you're going through. And that's a message that I like to embody, because I do a lot of collaborative work with people, and people, I get often asked, aren't you afraid of them stealing your ideas, or they do the same thing, they're going to steal your client? It's like, no, we're going to help more people. If we can come together, we can help more people. So I just love that you said that.
I'm so grateful. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad.
Well, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
To our listeners, we will see you again next week. And in the meantime, I wish for you amazingly creative days.
Are you a daily journaler? Do you want more creativity in your day? We have 2 great creativity journals to start your day with. One for people who already have a journaling practice, and one for people who are new to journaling. Both are an amazing way to start your day. Both make the perfect gift for a person in your life. Check out Have an Amazingly Creative Day and How Do I Have an Amazingly Creative Day? Both currently available on Amazon. Click the link below to purchase yours now.